Part 39. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Ken Ru Xiahua. Chapter 381. Listening to Zhong Tingyu's answer, Li Yuan felt instantly surrounded by happiness. He knew who Zhong Tingyu was talking about. Who else could it be besides her roommate Baiwuxi? Well, how about I go try, Li Yuan said with a guilty conscience. How does he feel that this is a bit like a trap full of temptations? Even if Zhong Tingyu loved herself again, would she accept this kind of thing easily? This is simply unbelievable. Seeing Li Yuan's face flushing and his heart beating, Zhong Tingyu became even more certain that Li Yuan was a restless master, and he was also so bold that he even wanted to try such a completely impossible thing. Zhong Tingyu said casually with a smile, "Okay, you go and try it, just in case she agrees." Zhong Tingyu also wanted to know how Baiwuxi would react if she knew Li Yuan's thoughts, and how much she could do for Li Yuan. This week, the two of them stayed apart in the dormitory with a tacit understanding. They met very rarely, just for fear of being embarrassed. Even if they met occasionally, neither of them mentioned anything about Li Yuan. It's like the two of them are not in love. The 6 people in the dormitory were also clearly divided into 2 small circles. She, Ding Shanshan and Su Tingro were in a small circle, they were very close and they often went out together. And Baiwuxi, Wang Lisa, and Deng Maiki are in a small circle. The 2 small circles are clearly divided, and the water in the well does not interfere with the water in the river. Although Zhong Tingyu didn't like this feeling, the temporary peace and quiet was a compromise after being heartbroken for more than 10 days. Li Yuan smiled coquettishly, feeling that it was very unreliable, so he used the method of changing the topic again. The property manager has been contacted. Let's go over and take a look now. The house introduced by Wang Jun is called Xingawan Community. It is about 20 minutes drive from Lanjiao Building. It is located on the Huangpu River. It is a top-notch wealthy community surrounded by high-rise buildings with bright lights and greenery. Mr. Li, this house is a single-family villa with 3 floors above ground and 1 underground floor. It has a separate garage and garden. The total area of the house is 600 square meters. It has been fully decorated, but no one has lived in it yet. It means it's a completely new house. As soon as he entered the Xingawan community, Wang Jun introduced the advantages of this house incessantly. The owner of the house needed to go abroad because of urgent matters. He just vacated this very good house a few days ago. Mr. Li and I are familiar with each other. We immediately took this house from other people's hands, grab it and take you to visit. Li Yuan and Zhong Tingyu held hands and looked at the community with expressions of satisfaction on their faces. Although the 3 communities of Jingxia Villa, Jiangnan Garden, and Feiqiuai Mansion are also high-end communities, the feeling is much different from the Galaxy Bay community. The greenery and environment here are undoubtedly better. Wang Jun pointed to the villas in the front row hidden among the greenery and said with a smile. Mr. Li, the house we want to look at is this one, house number 16. There are only 36 single-family villas in the entire Xingawan community, and all of them have been sold. Li Yuan followed Wang Jun and came to villa number 16. It was now 2008. Many houses were built in a more Western style, especially the single-family villas in the Xingawan community, which looked very European and American. The first floor is a gate with a garden, which is about 50 or 60 square meters. After entering the door, there is the living room. In the living room, there is a framed calligraphy and painting "God rewards those who work hard." Li Yuan took a look at the decoration of the living room and thought it was pretty good. Mr. Li, the first floor here is the living room and kitchen. There are also 2 rooms that can be used as guest rooms and nanny rooms. There is a public toilet. Wang Jun introduced little by little with a smile. Li Yuan looked at Zhong Tingyu and asked, "Little Moon, how do you feel about it?" Zhong Tingyu blinked her beautiful eyes, and stars began to appear in her eyes. This villa was even more luxurious than she had imagined. The area of one floor alone is larger than the house in Jinxia Villa, and the decoration is also very exquisite, full of modern and simple style. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Li Yuan smiled and said, then let's continue to look at the second and third floors. Wang Jun looked very satisfied when he saw Zhong Tingyu and Li Yuan. He became even more excited and enthusiastically reached out to lead the way. Mr. Li, Miss Zhong, please come with me. The second floor is full of bedrooms and a small living room, including 2 master bedrooms, 2 secondary bedrooms, and 2 separate bathrooms. The third floor has a large balcony, a bedroom, 2 studies, a private home theater. Li Yuan nodded frequently as he looked at it. This was the super mansion he imagined, a symbol of status. If housing prices in the Magic City skyrocketed later, the price of this 600 square meter villa would have to start at least 100 million. Mr. Li, come with me, let's take a look at the basement. The basement is not counted as an area. It is about 120 square meters. It is a storage room, gym, and wine cabinet. Some valuables can be stored here. When you have nothing to do, you can also play billiards in the gym and keep fit. Li Yuan looked at the decoration and layout of the basement and thought to himself that this place should be used to hide some valuables, such as jewelry, gold, antiques, etc. After viewing the entire house, Li Yuan was generally very satisfied. Both the decoration style and the internal layout were very good. In the living room, several people sat down, and Li Yuan said bluntly, Manager Wang, my girlfriend, and I are generally very satisfied with this villa. Let's talk about the price. Wang Jun sat upright and thought, the real show is coming. No matter what, it's still a question of price. Thinking about the wording, Wang Jun gently explained. Mr. Li, Miss Zhong, this villa is the top luxury house in Shanghai. There are very few villas in Shanghai with a larger area than this one. The house was bought by the original owner 3 years ago and was renovated in March this year. The decoration alone cost more than 1 million. Li Yuan was speechless and interrupted Wang Jun directly. He frowned and said, Manager Wang, just tell me the price. Wang Jun was not embarrassed at all. He looked at Li Yuan and said a number carefully. 20 million. Hearing this number, before Li Yuan said anything, Zhong Tingyu was already covering her mouth in shock. Her small hands tightly grasped Li Yuan, obviously a little scared by the price. This was in 2008, when the national average wage was less than 2,000 yuan. The living expenses of most college students, such as roommates Ding Shanshan and Su Tingro, were only 500 or 600 yuan. And this house was priced at 20 million yuan. Zhong Tingyu glanced at Li Yuan, her heartbeat accelerating. She was relatively clear about Li Yuan's property, and knew much more than her rival Baiwuxi. Just like the transfer fee of the copyright of the game Battle Starry Sky, Baiwuxi had no idea at all, and she accompanied Li Yuan to negotiate and sign the contract. But Li Yuan has spent a lot of money recently. Just investing in milk tea shops and buying 10 stores cost 10 million yuan, and there were also decoration, warehouses, raw materials, employee salaries, etc. All in all, it also cost several million yuan. He also bought a few sports cars, opened another company, and established the Zhid website. Zhong Tingyu looked at Li Yuan with some concern. Is the money enough? Li Yuan was not surprised when he heard the price. A single-family villa of more than 600 square meters, fully decorated and unoccupied, is worth the price. After 11 years, when the Magic City begins to restrict purchases, the price will skyrocket, and the land price in the Magic City will also rise rapidly. Single-family villas like this, which are not cost-effective for developers, will also be hard to find. There are too many rich people in the Magic City, and many rich people from home and abroad gather here. In the future, Such single-family villas will not be worried about selling, and the price will at least increase tenfold. Li Yuan has already decided to buy it, and said lightly. 20 million? Okay, I want it. Hearing Li Yuan's answer, a big stone in Wang Jun's heart fell completely, and the expression of surprise could no longer be concealed. The eyes looking at Li Yuan were full of gratitude, which made Li Yuan shudder. Wang Jun asked cautiously, Mr. Li, is it still full payment? Li Yuan nodded, yes, full payment. He still has more than 25 million in his account, which he can't use for the time being. Even if he really used it, there was still Biguanti's stock. After nearly a month of skyrocketing, the value of the 20 million stocks he invested in has now risen to about 140 million, with a net profit of 100 million. He planned to sell all these stocks one by one in early November. By that time, the cash flow in his hands would exceed 100 million. 100 million, 100 million, just depositing it in the bank to earn interest, it would cost several million a year. Just relying on the interest, you can live a rich life. Those real rich people, who are worth tens of billions, unless the investment fails, it is impossible to simply spend all the money on wine and women. The interest alone is several hundred million a year, and you have to spend millions every day. You can't spend it all even if you go to the club every day. Hearing Li Yuan's generous answer, Wang Jun was even more in awe of Li Yuan. In the current global economic crisis, it was the first time he saw someone who could take out 20 million cash to buy a villa. Wang Jun patted his chest and promised, Mr. Li, please rest assured, I will handle the transfer for you as quickly as possible. In less than a week, you can own this top luxury house. Yes, Li Yuan smiled and nodded. He still believed in the ability of this real estate manager. Okay, let's do it. Zhong Tingyu was sitting in the co-pilot, and her head was still a little confused when she went back to school. Just like that, 20 million was spent? It's too simple. An idea suddenly came to her mind, making her stare at Li Yuan. She wanted to ask, but she didn't dare to ask. Li Yuan looked at Zhong Tingyu, who seemed to be hesitant to speak, and asked in surprise. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 382. Little Moon, what's wrong with your tangled expression? Zhong Tingyu put Li Yuan's right hand on her thigh, stared at Li Yuan with a smile, and spoke hesitantly. Well, senior, can I ask you a question? Of course, what do you want to ask? As Li Yuan answered, he used his right hand to massage the inner side of Zhong Tingyu's thigh. Suddenly he touched it somewhere inadvertently, and he felt happy. That sanitary pad seemed to be missing. In this way, can you enjoy a happy sexual life again today? This week, when he was with Zhong Tingyu, he could only eat vegetarian food, which made him feel itchy. Seeing Li Yuan touching her, Zhong Tingyu squeaked and stared at Li Yuan with blushing cheeks. Senior, if I ask, don't be angry. Li Yuan chuckled, faint, how can I be so stingy? Just ask whatever you want, and I will answer all questions. Then I asked. Well, ask. He, senior, can you tell me how much money you have? After Zhong Tingyu asked, she stared at Li Yuan with flashing eyes, very curious about this question. How much money do you have? Li Yuan smiled. He didn't expect Zhong Tingyu to ask this question. He thought it was an emotional issue. Isn't it just asking for money? How about being so cautious? If the 20 million I just bought this villa is deducted, I have about 4 to 5 million left. After Li Yuan finished speaking, he glanced at Zhong Tingyu's expression. She seemed a little surprised and uneasy. When Zhong Tingyu heard that Li Yuan only had 4 or 5 million left, he felt a little worried. Next, a series of things behind the milk tea shop also require a lot of money, and his Sci-fi company has so many people. The salary alone is also a huge expense. In this way, will the capital turnover be unable to open? Seeing Zhong Tingyu's troubled expression, Li Yuan asked in surprise. Little Moon, what's wrong? I see you hesitating. Zhong Tingyu replied hesitantly, Senior, I don't know if I should say it. Li Yuan smiled and said, what's the relationship between us? Whatever you have in mind, just say whatever you want. I don't know how to eat people. Listening to Li Yuan's words, Zhong Tingyu mustered up her courage and hummed. Then I told you, you have to promise not to get angry. Okay, I promise. Well, Senior, I don't think we need to buy such an expensive house for the time being. Li Yuan asked in surprise, oh, why do you say that? Zhong Tingyu explained with a smile, Senior, we already have a house now, so we don't need to change to a villa. And we also need to open a milk tea company and Zhihu. There are many places to use money. I'm afraid that the capital turnover will be limited. Besides, you can make a down payment when buying a house. There is no need to pay the full amount. Senior, you said that houses in Shanghai will rise sharply in the future, and it will be more cost-effective to buy a house with a loan. Hee, Senior, I just expressed some of my thoughts, please don't be angry. Li Yuan's mouth twitched slightly. Zhong Tingyu was worthy of being the tea-faced and moon-colored landlady. The milk tea shop hasn't officially opened yet, but she has already begun to take on the role and knows how to manage assets. Li Yuan admired Zhong Tingyu's style, and she felt like a strong businesswoman. Including all the previous planning and research on the milk tea shop, I have sincerely devoted myself to it and researched it. In fact, what Zhong Tingyu said is right. According to her thinking, it is indeed possible to more optimally allocate assets and ensure capital turnover. Seeing that Li Yuan suddenly stopped talking, Zhong Tingyu carefully took Li Yuan's big hand and asked, Senior, are you not angry? Li Yuan laughed dumbly, stretched out his hand to rub Zhong Tingyu's head, and said with a smile. There's nothing for me to be angry about. What you said makes sense. Haha, I just forgot to tell you that in addition to cash, I also invested in a stock. The stock value is probably more than 100 million. Chapter 225, The club is recruiting new people, and someone is showing off in front of me. Li Yuan's Baiguandi stock is already worth 140 million, and it is very easy to sell it at this stage. If it is not locked up, it can naturally be regarded as his wealth. When Zhong Tingyu heard Li Yuan's sudden turn of events, her beautiful face was filled with shock, her eyes widened, and her seductive red lips slightly opened. After the shock, there was an expression of embarrassment and her cheeks were slightly hot. She was still worried about Li Yuan just now, fearing that the funds would not be able to be used. Zhong Tingyu let go of Li Yuan's hand and said angrily, Senior, you did it on purpose. You wanted to laugh at me. How could it be? It's just that I didn't have time to say it just now. Li Yuan laughed, explained, pinched Zhong Tingyu's cheek, and praised. Little Moon, what you said is actually correct. Assets do need to be allocated. It is definitely best to invest in real estate loans. It's just that the current amount of funds is still a bit too small, and the amount of loans available is also small. It doesn't make sense to only invest in dozens or hundreds of houses. When the milk tea shop is opened and there are big profits, including gaming companies, Zhihu.com, etc., when the cash flow is sufficient, you can invest in real estate. After listening to Li Yuan's plan, Zhong Tingyu felt relieved, with a sweet smile on her face again. She looked at Li Yuan expectantly and asked, Senior, where are we going now? Li Yuan glanced at Zhong Tingyu's face and smiled mischievously, let's find a hidden underground parking lot first. Zhong Tingyu asked in surprise, ah. Why do you want to find an underground parking lot? What do you think? Li Yuan smiled mischievously, of course, it's to do business. Zhong Tingyu understood after he said that, and her cheeks flushed instantly. It had been a long time since the last time the two of them were in the car. She thought of the scene where Li Yuan deliberately touched her panties with his hand just now, and she knew in her heart that the bad man in front of her already knew that her period was over. Zhong Tingyu pouted and snorted. Stinky senior, you must have bad intentions. Li Yuan smiled and drove the car directly into the underground parking lot of a shopping mall, and found a hidden dark corner. Then, turn off the engine and get out of the car. Li Yuan came to the co-pilot, pulled Zhong Tingyu, whose body was slightly hot, and was full of expectations. Xiao Yu, come to the back seat, it's a bit crowded in the front. Zhong Tingyu rolled her eyes at Li Yuan, but still reached out her hand and got out of the car obediently, her heart pounding. She was nervous and full of expectations. This week, she couldn't wait any longer. Young bodies are always very eager to blend into each other. Soon, in the darkest corner of the mall, a brand new BMW X6 was shaking slightly in a rhythmic way. In the blink of an eye, a weekend was over. On Monday morning, Li Yuan, Lucia, Suzuki-yang, and others were chatting during the break. Lao Lu, Hazi, Xiaoqiang, you have been working for a week. How do you feel? Have you adapted? Lucia laughed and said, I feel quite relaxed. I just sit there, play with the computer, and set the pace. It's just like surfing the internet. Not only can I surf the internet for free, but I can also make money. It's so cool. Wu Hao also felt the same way and agreed, Brother Yuan, this kind of work is really suitable for us. It's in school, and we don't need to squeeze into the bus like other part-time workers. Suzuki-yang echoed proudly, Brother Yuan, you don't know, many classmates in the class envy you. They all ask me in private if your company still needs part-time staff. Li Yuan asked in surprise, hey, why don't they ask me directly? Wu Hao glanced at Li Yuan and joked, Brother Yuan, you are always out of sight, how can they ask you directly? Suzuki-yang said, Hazi is right, Brother Yuan, you are the boss of the top 10 forum websites in China, you are a person of status. Li Yuan was speechless. These guys praised him as a business tycoon after entering his company as a part-time worker. Hey, you idiots, can you stop exaggerating? I will be proud. Li Yuan said self-deprecatingly, if I go bankrupt one day, won't I be slapped in the face and laughed at by others? Although he said so, Li Yuan didn't think he would go bankrupt at all. He had so many opportunities in front of him in his life, and it was really difficult to go bankrupt. Not to mention other things, just the Bitcoin that appeared at the beginning of next year can also make a lot of money and easily achieve wealth freedom. There are also the well-known NBA basketball games, the World Cup, etc. It is really easy to make money. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Ken Ru Xiahua. Chapter 383. The only difficulty was getting the first pot of gold, which he already had. Brother Yuan, don't worry and be proud. My vision is not wrong. Sooner or later, you will become a big shot that we can't hope to achieve, like a real business tycoon. Wu Hao looked at his roommate, who was so talented and exaggerated, with an expression of admiration, and talked about another thing. By the way, Brother Yuan, I heard that at the School of Economics, someone has proposed to use his promotional methods as typical successful business cases and analyze them as teaching materials for our school. When he heard that his case of cutting a knife would be regarded as a case by the school, Li Yuan's expression was suddenly shocked, and then he laughed dumbly and shook his head. This is too exaggerated. The slash mode is very simple and easy to copy. As long as you have a little in-depth understanding, you can understand the principles. Suddenly, Lucia secretly put his head next to Li Yuan's ear and said with a smile. Brother Yuan, what do you think of our squad leader? How is the squad leader? What do you mean? Li Yuan felt a little confused. Their squad leader, Xiangtan Yangkaiu, is quite serious and responsible, and he is also very beautiful, second only to Xia's Haijin, and between Wang Zhurong and Wang Zhurong. According to Lucia and others, there are many boys in the class pursuing Xiang Yangkaiu, but I haven't heard of any of them succeeding. Lucia smiled mysteriously, pointed at Xiangtan Yangkaiu who was sitting on the other side, and said with a mean smile. Brother Yuan, I think the monitor must have a crush on you. Li Yuan looked stunned, with a speechless look on his face, and knocked Lucia on the head. Lao Lu, can you stop talking nonsense? Everyone likes me. I'm not RMB. Lucia disapproved and continued to smile evilly. Brother Yuan, of course I am not just saying nothing. The monitor has secretly inquired about you several times and asked me about your situation. He is very concerned about you. Tell me, she doesn't have a crush on you, what else could it be? Li Yuan laughed dumbly. Can this be called a secret love? Lao Lu, your brain is full of mush. Is it possible that I skipped too many classes and she was afraid that I would fail and affect my class performance? Lucia smiled and continued to maintain his point of view. No, I feel like she must have a crush on you. Brother Yuan, didn't the squad leader add you on QQ, so she didn't chat with you? I feel that as long as you show a little bit of your thoughts, you can definitely take down the squad leader. Li Yuan was speechless. Lao Lu, if you like it, go after it yourself and don't blame me for everything. Although Xiang Tanyan is good looking, there is still a big gap between her and Xia's Haijin, Zhong Tingyu and Bai Wuxi. Even the instructor Qi Siyu is far behind her. He is not the real Jingdong Lu. Although the milk tea girl is so beautiful, she also said that she is face blind, but he can still distinguish between the beautiful and the ugly. Su Ziqiang suddenly answered, I heard that Zhou Tianyu has been chasing the squad leader. I wonder if there is any progress. Lucia glanced next to him. Zhou Tianyu was not sitting with the four of them, but with the people in the dormitory next door. That boy Tianyu doesn't go back to the dormitory very much now. He seems to have rented a house outside the school. Who knows, he is living a carefree life now, hanging out with several girls every day, flirting, and now he doesn't sit with us anymore. Hearing several people talking about Zhou Tianyu, Li Yuan frowned slightly and felt cold in his heart. Last week, he asked Tan Zonghua to send a lawyer's letter to Zhou Tianyu, as well as evidence that he was spreading rumors behind his back. This guy should be quite scared now. Lucia looked at a few people and asked. One more thing, I heard that today the Student Union, Youth League, and other clubs will start recruiting new members. Are you ready to join? Wu Hao quickly asked, the club is recruiting new people? I heard that being a class cadre and joining the Student Union will help to get into D. I don't know if it is true or not. When Li Yuan listened to Wu Hao's words, he suddenly thought that he was from Lu province and had an inexplicable obsession with organization. Mouse, do you want to enter D, and then wait until graduation to participate in the selection process, or take the public examination? As soon as Li Yuan's words came out, everyone except Wu Hao was a little surprised. Lucia exclaimed, Mouse, you are a good 985 college student, shouldn't you take the civil service exam? Wu Hao smiled and explained, no, I'm just asking. I'm not interested in taking the public examination because the salary is too low. Li Yuan smiled and said nothing. Is the salary of a civil servant really very low? Not necessarily. In this scoring place, your treatment is definitely very different between Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Guangzhou and other places. In this era, the public examination is actually not a special test. It will be a bit exaggerated to wait until the 3 years come. Lucia answered and said with a smile, That's right, now that Brother UN is so awesome, we can work part-time in Brother UN's company now. After graduation, we can hang out with Brother UN and not be popular or drink spicy food. Brothers, am I right? Wu Hao and Suzuki Yang both nodded quickly. Their confidence in Li Yuan was greater than Li Yuan himself. Li Yuan smiled and glanced at the three roommates. When he first came to the university, he thought that his relationship with Yijing and Zhou Tianyu would be relatively better. But now, for some reason, Yijing's relationship with him seemed very distant. She would rather work part-time in the library than come to his company. As for Zhou Tianyu, he was even more hateful. He even stabbed him in the back. On the contrary, Wu Hao, Lucia, and Suzuki Yang, who often played basketball with him, had a good relationship with him. For these three roommates, Li Yuan didn't mind taking them with him. It was just a piece of cake. Brother Yuan, are you going to join the student union? Lucia suddenly asked curiously. If you join the student union, with your current prestige, the president of the student union will be just in your pocket. Wu Hao chuckled and shook his head. Brother Yuan should not be interested in this. Brother Yuan is now a big shot. How could he be willing to participate in such a small fight as the student union? Li Yuan smiled and nodded. I am really not interested in this. If you are interested, you can try it. He said this, thinking, what is the student union of a university? Is it worthy for me to join? I am already chatting and laughing with the vice president of the school. After school, Li Yuan took Xia's Haijin by the hand, and Lucia, Li Lanrong and others followed him, talking and laughing all the way. As they were talking, they talked about recruiting new members for the club. Li Lanrong smiled and said, I heard that you like painting. I wonder if there is an art club in our school. When you are bored, you can go and learn. Chen Chen, Xingxin, what are your hobbies? Which club do you want to join? Ge Chen Chen smiled and said, I want to join the student union. I know a senior sister who is in the publicity department of the student union. She asked me if I would like to go. I am very interested in writing. I will join the literature club. After Gao Xian finished speaking, he looked at Xia's Haijin and Li Yuan curiously and joked. Li Yuan, Haijin, what about you two? Li Yuan listened to Gao Xian's question and looked at Xia's Haijin. He was moved. He had neglected her a little recently and didn't ask her about her interests and hobbies. Li Yuan felt guilty, grabbed Xia's Haijin's hand, and asked. Haijin, are you interested? I'll go with you to have a look. Xia's Haijin glanced at Li Yuan and shook her head. No, I don't have any hobbies. She was telling the truth. Because of her family, she was able to eat and go to school, which was already very good. How could she have time to have hobbies? Li Yuan rubbed her head and smiled. Haijin, it's good to have some hobbies and interests, so that we won't be so bored. We need more fun in our lives so that we won't come in vain. If you want to join any club, I can accompany you. Oh, Xia's Haijin nodded shyly. Li Lanrong on the side joked, wow, Li Yuan is so warm. Gao Xian said enviously, tisk tisk, they are showing off their love again, I'm full. Several people came to the square in front of the cafeteria. At this time, this large square has been blocked by many parasols, and there are various billboards below, with notices of recruitment for various clubs. The largest number of people were in the various departments of the student union, which were very crowded. Others were some popular clubs, such as the roller skating club, taekwondo club, basketball club, etc., which also had a lot of people. Wow, there are so many clubs in our school, and there is even a rugby club. What is rugby? I have never heard of it. This guitar club is quite interesting. You can learn to play guitar in it. I remember that you can also play guitar, Brother Yuan. Do you want to try it? Several people were talking, and suddenly Gao Xian pointed to a certain place and shouted excitedly. "Found it, this is the literature club, let's go and take a look." Li Yuan also showed an interested look. He really wanted to know what the specific content of the university's literature club was. A group of 8 or 9 people followed Gao Xian to the booth of the literature club. As one of the popular clubs, the attraction of the literature club is still quite attractive to these top students of 985 universities. Being able to be admitted to a 985 university, in high school, is not to say that it is a child of destiny, but it is also considered to be outstanding in talent and learning. As Li Yuan and his companions approached, they heard some freshmen asking questions. "Beautiful lady, what are the requirements for joining the literature club? If the confession fails, chase her bestie." Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 384. Hello, senior sister, I want to ask, does joining the literature club mean that you can write novels? Joining the literature club, can you also make a lot of money like the online writer in our school? You should be talking about Sheng Ru Xiahua, right? He seems to write online novels, quite good. Li Yuan felt very interesting when he heard someone mention him. Unconsciously, he also became a legend in the mouths of others. Li Yuan listened and went to the basketball club next to the literature club to take a look. Compared with the literature club, the basketball club was more attractive to him. After his rebirth, his physical fitness exploded, which made his basketball level rise. There may be some powerful basketball masters in the basketball club of Daxia University. On the other side, Gao Xian looked at the 2 men and 2 women at the literature club booth and asked, "Seniors, can I ask, what does our school's literature club mainly do?" One of the boys wearing glasses raised his head and glanced at Gao Xian, expressionless, and then inadvertently glanced at Xia's Haijin, who was following Gao Xian, with a flash of shock in his eyes. Then he spoke incessantly, glancing at Xia's Haijin, who was listening attentively from time to time. "Junior sister, our Daxia University's literature club has existed since the 1980s, with a long history and many celebrities. It mainly exchanges literary creation and studies some literary knowledge. If you love literature and have a certain literary literacy, you can join us after being approved by our literature club." After speaking, the boy wearing glasses looked at Xia's Haijin again, and he was very eager that this gentle girl with a stunning appearance could be attracted by his words and join the literature club. Gao Xian was very interested in what she heard. She liked literary creation and asked curiously, Senior, do you discuss how to write novels in your literature club?" The boy with glasses was slightly startled and asked, "What kind of novel are you talking about?" Gao Xian replied, "Online novels." When Gao Xian mentioned online novels, the boy with glasses had a flash of disdain in his eyes and spoke proudly. "Our literature club mainly exchanges some traditional literature, classical and modern poetry, and some novels with realistic significance, all of which are published in major suppression and literary weekly magazines. For example, I have written several articles, all of which have been published in Youth Digest. As for the online novels you mentioned, this kind of fast food garbage, sorry, I just said it casually, there is no literary value at all, and our literature club will definitely not study it. Novels like Battle of the Stars are just ordinary pretentious slaps, without any literary value. As long as the people in our literature club want, everyone can write better than this." Gao Xian, Li Lanrong, Xia's Haijin, and others frowned when listening to the answer of the man with eyes. This is too much of a disregard for online novels, right? He also belittled Battle of the Stars written by Li Yuan. Several girls subconsciously glanced at Li Yuan, who was visiting the club next to them. In their hearts, they thought that the author of Battle of the Stars you mentioned was right next to them. Xia's Haijin, who was always good-tempered, looked at the man with glasses in front of him, frowned, and couldn't help but refute. Online novels are the future development trend of literature. They can provide spiritual value to many people and are no worse than traditional literature. When the man with glasses heard the fairy-like girl in front of him speak, he was immediately delighted. He shook his head, held up his gold-rimmed glasses, put on a look that he thought was very handsome, stared at Xia's Haijin with fiery eyes, and began to play with his talent. My junior, the value of literature lies in words and spirit. It can bring spiritual enjoyment to people and convey spiritual power with words, just like the novels of Lu Xun and Lao Shi, which can reflect the current situation of society and save the soul of a nation. These are the values of literature, and online literature is like a product. Apart from those vulgar routines, fast food plots, and some vulgar content, there is no other literary value. The man with glasses was talking, and suddenly, a voice came to his ear. Oh, really? The man with glasses turned around and saw a tall boy who came in front of him and directly held the hand of the girl in front of him, who made his heart beat. Li Yuan looked at the man with a smile. He just heard Xia's Haijin's voice in the basketball club next to him. It seemed that he was arguing with others, so he hurried over and happened to hear the man with glasses in front of him belittling online literature. Someone actually pretended to be cool by belittling online literature in front of me. Li Yuan felt very interesting, too interesting. In school, he hasn't encountered such a slap in the face for a long time. Li Yuan looked at the man with glasses with a sneer, full of oppression, and said with a playful expression, "You look down on online literature and Battle Starry Sky so much, there must be a famous masterpiece, right? Which literary masterpiece is it? Tell me, I'll go read it." Hearing the sarcasm in Li Yuan's words, the man with glasses' face changed slightly, and seeing Xia's Haijin looking like a little bird beside Li Yuan, the feeling of jealousy suddenly surged in his heart. "Junior brother, do you know a lot about literature?" Li replied calmly, "I know a little bit." Hearing Li Yuan's answer, Gao Xian and Li Lanran couldn't help laughing. If Li Yuan doesn't understand literature, then there aren't many people who understand literature in China. He is now one of the representatives of online literature. The laughter of Gao Xian, Li Lanran, and others was so harsh and unpleasant to the man with glasses. He looked at Li Yuan and said proudly, "I have published more than 10 articles in Youth Digest, Readers, Magic City Times, etc. By the way, I am also a member of the Writers Association of Puyuan District, Magic City." "Haha, Writers Association, do you know what it is?" Li Yuan smiled and took out a small red book from his pocket. He just got it at the weekend. "You are a member of the Writers Association." "Oh, what a coincidence, I am too." Chapter 226, The Power of the Membership Certificate of the Chinese Writers Association. The man with glasses is Zhang Haiqiang, a sophomore student. He has always been proud of himself for having become a member of the Writers Association of Puyuan District, Magic City during his college years. There are 26 people in the Daxia University Literature Society, and only 6 of them are members of the District Writers Association. The other 5 are all seniors in their 3rd and 4th years. Therefore, Zhang Haiqiang feels like a cultured person because of his identity and looks down on those who write online novels. Not only him, but other members of the Literature Society have the same idea. Literature is an elegant thing, reflecting the character of literati, and it can govern the country with literature. What is a mere online novel? It can be considered literature, but it is just some fabricated and imaginary garbage. They don't regard online literature as literature at all. Therefore, after seeing Xia's Haijin, a girl with a fairy-like appearance, come to visit the Literature Society, Zhang Haiqiang deliberately showed his talent and identity, hoping to attract the attention of these freshmen. This trick has been tried and tested by him. Because of his outstanding talent and membership in the District Writers Association, he is like a fish in water in the literature society and can attract the admiration of girls. After all, they are all top students from 985 universities. Girls here are naturally close to talented boys, which is why he has changed several girlfriends just over a year after entering college. Looking at the fairy in front of him who seemed to have walked out of a painting, hugging Li Yuan's arm intimately, Zhang Haiqiang's jealousy was already overwhelming, and he felt that his true love was taken away. However, when he saw the red notebook that Li Yuan threw in front of him, he was like being hit on the head, his body trembled suddenly, and his eyes were fixed on the red notebook in front of him. The line of big words on it deeply penetrated his heart, making him even a little breathless. At this time, another man and two women in the literature club also looked at the red books that Li Yuan threw on the table curiously. One of them had a little baby fat on her face, was about 1.6 meters tall, had a slightly fat figure, and also wore black framed glasses. She looked at the red notebook curiously and read it out. Membership card of the Chinese Writers Association. As members of the literature club, they naturally understood that writers in China are also divided into levels. The lowest level is the county, district, Writers Association. Generally, as long as you have published articles in some magazines and journals and published your own works, you can join the county, district, Writers Association, just like Zhang Haiqiang. But even the simplest county, district, Writers Association is not something that ordinary college students can join, especially in the international metropolis of Shanghai, it is even more difficult. Above the county, district, Writers Association, there are also city writers associations and provincial writers associations. If you want to join the Provincial Writers Association, you must have a certain influence in the literary field of your province. After all, there are tens of millions of people in a province, and the number of members of the Provincial Writers Association is at most a few hundred or 1,000. Above the Provincial Writers Association is the China Writers Association, which is already one of the ceilings in the literary field in their eyes. Even the president of their literary club is at most a member of the Provincial Writers Association. Most of the presidents of literary clubs are not even members of the Provincial Writers Association. And the boy in front of him suddenly threw out a membership card of the China Writers Association, which made several girls in the literary club look a little suspicious. How old are you, and you're already a member of the China Writers Association? Didn't you pick it up or forge a fake certificate? The slightly plump girl expressed doubt, and the other thin and tall girl with short hair beside her couldn't help but mock her. Yes, do you know what a member of the China Writers Association represents? Just show it like that. If you are a member of the China Writers Association, why do you join the Literature Society? Just let you be the president of the Literature Society. As cultured people, they naturally understand the weight of the China Writers Association. At least, college students can't join it. The only ones who can join the China Writers Association are professors and associate professors like those in the Chinese department of Daxia University. Although the man in front of him looks very handsome and cool, with full muscle lines on his body, and looks a bit like a sports student, he doesn't have a bit of cultural atmosphere. How could he be a member of the China Writers Association? This must be fake. In today's society, it's too easy to forge a fake certificate by spending a few $dozen. The thin and tall girl with short hair glanced at Li Yuan and laughed and teased. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 385. Haha, this junior, this is not a fake certificate you forged. Next time, if you forge a certificate from a local county writers association, we might believe it. If you forge a certificate from the Central Writers Association, it will be a joke. Listening to what Zhu Li and Hu Fei said, Zhang Haiqiang suddenly figured it out, regained his composure, looked at Li Yuan with a sarcastic look, and shook his head. This junior, You should be down to earth and don't take crooked paths. You and these juniors, if you really like literature and want to join us, study hard and show us your talents. If you perform well and can pass the review of our literature club, and study seriously with me in the future, it may not be impossible for you to join our Puyuan District Writers Association. Li Yuan listened to the cold sarcasm of several people in the cultural club, and put on a high-handed posture, which made him laugh. Is this the legendary literati? It's really pretentious, and it's as self-righteous as I thought. Listening to the words of the literature club, Li Yuan only felt funny and very interested. Because, after he went to college, he really didn't encounter the plot of being looked down upon by others, and then pretending to be cool and getting slapped in the face. This is the first time in the true sense. After all, he started to earn his first pot of gold just after graduating from the college entrance examination, and his own clothes, appearance, and figure are not suitable for being bullied. Perhaps, only the young literati in the literature club who think highly of themselves will have this inexplicable sense of superiority. Li Yuan sneered, pointed to the small red booklet thrown on the table, and said with a strange look, Everyone, are you sure you don't want to see my membership card? The tall and thin girl with short hair frowned with some disgust, and the last bit of good impression on Li Yuan disappeared without a trace. Junior brother, do you have to let us expose you and humiliate yourself? Li Yuan smiled indifferently, a little bored, and he suddenly felt that there was nothing good to talk about with these idiots. Listening to the ridicule from the literature club, Gao Xian, who was beside Li Yuan, couldn't help but sneer in rebuttal. I had some expectations for our school's literature club before, but now it seems that they are all just some people who are arrogant but incompetent. Gao Xian's voice was loud and fast, and he didn't wait for the response from the literature club. He pointed at Li Yuan beside him and spoke with a playful look. Do you know who he is? Just say he made a fake certificate. Zhang Haiqiang and others looked at Li Yuan with some doubts when they heard Gao Xian's words. However, no matter how they looked at it, Li Yuan didn't look like a member of the Chinese Writers Association. They didn't know him at all. Judging from his figure, if he was a national athlete, it was possible. Being ridiculed by Gao Xian, the literature club members fought back. Zhang Haiqiang looked at Li Yuan with interest and said teasingly, Oh, this junior, is he some otherworldly master who comes here to play the pig and eat the tiger? I really want to know what your identity is and what masterpiece you have. Li Yuan was holding Xia Haijin's hand boredly, drawing circles on her palm with his fingers. Listening to Zhang Haiqiang's words, Li Yuan laughed and didn't bother to answer at all. Why bother with a few college students who don't know the height of the world and think highly of themselves? No matter what, he is also a CEO with a net worth of over 100 million, with the title of founder of Zhihu. Li Yuan's cold smile, which seemed to be indifferent, made Zhang Haiqiang furious. He stared at Li Yuan and his tone became more aggressive. Junior, tell us your identity and see if you can scare us. Li Lanrong, Ge Chen, Lucia, and others couldn't help laughing after hearing this. This time, before Gao Xian spoke, Lucia spoke first. Did he write the book you just madly belittled, Battle of the Stars? Now you know who he is. Hearing Lucia's words, Zhang Haiqiang and others were all shocked and asked in disbelief. Did you really write Battle of the Stars? Lucia continued to mock, haha, nonsense, this can be false. You just said that Battle of the Stars is worthless. Don't you even know the author of this book? Or, you haven't read this book at all, and then you started to belittle it madly because you are jealous. That's right, Brother Yuan's monthly royalties are more than you earn in your lifetime. It's normal to be jealous. However, if you are sick, you should go to the hospital for treatment, don't look down on others with a dog's eye. In this world, the starting point of a person is the height that you will never reach in your lifetime. Besides, Whether online literature has literary significance is not something that you can decide here. It is decided by the 1.4 billion people in the country. The National Writers Association recognizes the value of online literature and sent Brother Yuan a membership card of the China Writers Association. Who are you and what qualifications do you have to judge online literature? Listening to Lu Jia's string of counterattacks, several people, including Li Yuan, were stunned, as if they were meeting this classmate who laughed every day for the first time. Li Lanrong looked at Lu Jia's endless speech, and a strange emotion flashed through her heart. She had been in contact with him more in the past month, and she was a little fond of boys with Lu Jia's personality. However, Li Lanrong was also a little distressed. Lu Jia didn't seem to be interested in her. She gave several hints, but this guy didn't respond as if he didn't see them. I don't know if I really don't understand, or if I am deliberately pretending not to understand. Li Yuan reached out and took his membership card of the China Writers Association, put it into his pocket, looked at Lu Jia, and smiled faintly. Lao Lu, stop talking, summer insects cannot talk about ice. Lu Jiazhen was squirting with passion, and when he heard Li Yuan's voice, he couldn't help but feel pity on his face. He suddenly felt that this feeling of trolling someone without the person being trolled being afraid to retaliate was really great and extremely satisfying. Hey, Brother Yuan, you are just too low-key. You have to show your face in the exclusive interview with Moda TV tomorrow, lest anyone think that your membership card of the China Writers Association is fake. I thought those who could get into Xiamen University would have very high IQs and broad horizons. I didn't expect that I would encounter so many frogs in the well. Lu Jia shook his head with a very regretful expression. On the side, Zhang Haiqiang and 4 other members of the literary club, who had been sprayed by Lu Jia for a long time, had their faces turning blue and white. They were so ashamed that they wanted to find a crack in the ground and burrow down immediately. I just said so many self-righteous words, which seem really funny at the moment. Li Yuan held Xia Zhaijian's hand, looked at the people, and said with a faint smile. Zhaijian, Lao Lu, let's go, don't waste time here. Before Gao Xian left, he did not forget to mock, it is indeed a waste of time. If the Daxia University Literary Club has this level and knowledge, it is not worthy of me to participate. It is meaningless. Seeing that Li Yuan and others were about to leave, the fat girl among the 4 members of the literary club couldn't help but speak out. Xiahua, can you wait a moment? Li Yuan turned around, looked at the fat girl, and spoke expressionlessly. Is something wrong? The fat girl looked at Li Yuan and mustered up the courage to explain with some trepidation. Xiahua, I'm sorry, we didn't know it was you just now. Xiahua, if you want to join our literary club, all members of our literary club will definitely welcome you. Zhang Haiqiang, who was next to the fat girl, frowned slightly when he heard Julie apologize and ask Li Yuan to join the literary club. He wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't speak. With Li Yuan's status, if he can join the literary club, it will also make the Daxia University Literary Club famous. Being a member of the Writers Association is also very beneficial to my future development as the vice president of the literary club. Li Yuan laughed dumbly and shook his head. Seeing that the fat girl was sincerely apologizing, he gave a meaningful suggestion. In the future, online literature will play a decisive role in the cultural field, and it will also be an era where 100 flowers bloom. I hope you will remember one sentence: literature is always for the public, and literature that is liked by the public is what really needs to be developed. Literature. That's it for now. I won't say much else. Practice is the only criterion for testing truth. Let time bear witness. Let's go. Seeing Li Yuan and his party leaving, Julie suddenly felt a deep sense of loss in her heart. She had a feeling that what Li Yuan said was probably right. In the future, online literature will develop very quickly, and it is already beginning to take shape. As far as income is concerned, the income of leading online literature authors has begun to dwarf traditional literature. The traditional literature they value can only be appreciated on their own in a small area. Julie looked at the people around her, suddenly felt emotional, and said something depressed. I feel like we just personally turned away the opportunity for the literary club to take off. The thin girl with short hair thought about the legend about Li Yuan, her eyes looked strange, and she couldn't help but sigh with self-deprecation. Actually, Xiahua and the others are right. We do think a little too highly of ourselves because of our status as members of the literary club. We are a little arrogant. In fact, we are just a bunch of frogs in the well. Zhang Haiqiang saw that the two girls began to doubt themselves after listening to Li Yuan's words. He frowned and couldn't help but retort. I still stand by my point of view. Although online novels may make some money, they have no literary value and no spiritual significance. Even if Battle of the Stars becomes popular again, it will have little meaning in the face of traditional literature, and it is impossible to bring any spiritual strength to readers. After listening to Zhang Haiqiang's words, Julie and Hu Fei looked at each other and shook their heads secretly. Just wait and see, time will tell. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 386. Li Yuan and others rushed towards the cafeteria, and they kept complaining about the literary club along the way. Gao Xian said speechlessly, I know that when the club recruited new members today, I was full of expectations for our school's literary club. Who knew that such a stretch would ruin my expectations? Li Lanrong glanced at Lucia, his heart was pounding, and he joked, he, I didn't expect that Lucia's mouth was so powerful. He made the four people in the literary club speechless. Lucia, why didn't I find you so eloquent before? Lucia glanced at Li Lanrong and smiled, that's because you didn't know me well before. Besides, it's because Brother Yuan is here, so I feel confident. By the way, Brother Yuan, when did you join the Chinese Writers Association? Li Yuan smiled lightly and said, I joined some time ago. I just got the certificate yesterday. I didn't expect to use it today. It's a pity that it was taken as a fake certificate. That's the membership card of the Chinese Writers Association. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't believe it. Lucia chuckled, stretched out his hand, and looked expectantly. Brother Yuan, please show me your Writers Association certificate. This is the first time I have seen a certificate beginning with the national title. Li Yuan took out the certificate of association from his pocket and threw it to Lucia casually. It's just a certificate. It has no use other than a nice name. You have to pay membership fees every year. Listen, Brother Yuan still knows Versailles. Lucia quickly and carefully took the Chinese Writers Association membership card, carefully read the contents inside, and couldn't help shouting. Brother Yuan, you are so awesome. You are actually a member of the Chinese Writers Association with a national title. Is this equivalent to a national official? After hearing this, Li Yuan almost laughed out loud, and explained speechlessly, Lao Lu, the Writers Association is an association led by the Federation of Literary and Art Circles. Members of the Writers Association are nothing but civil servants. Lucia touched his head and said with a smile, I thought that members of the Chinese Writers Association were equivalent to national civil servants. But it doesn't matter. With your net worth, Brother Yuan, being a mere civil servant is nothing, right? Li Yuan shook his head and smiled without saying a word. If he were an ordinary official like him in his previous life, he would not even be considered a hairy person, it would just be a relatively stable ordinary profession. But if you are an extraordinary official, it is completely different. Even if you are the richest man in the country, it is of no use. Lucia, show us quickly. Gao Xian and Li Lanrong also looked at Li Yuan's membership card of the China Writers Association carefully one by one. Gao Xian smiled and said, he, Mr. Li, can I take a photo? Li Yuan smiled and asked, why are you taking pictures? You don't want to post on QQ, right? Gao Xian pursed his lips and chuckled, of course not. I just want to keep it as a souvenir. This is also my goal. I strive to become a member of the China Writers Association one day. Li Yuan smiled, Gao Xian, it's actually not difficult to join the Chinese Writers Association. With your writing skills, if you can find a suitable subject and write a wanding novel, you can almost join the Chinese Writers Association. Hearing Li Yuan's answer, Gao Xian looked slightly startled, his beautiful eyes staring at Li Yuan with a look of surprise on his face. Great talent Li, didn't you lie to me? Is it really that easy to join the Chinese Writers Association? Li Yuan coughed. He wanted to say that in this era, it is actually difficult to write a book with thousands of orders. But thinking about Gao Xian's writing style, if he really works hard in the field of online literature and finds the right subject matter, he is really likely to achieve something. Now is a great era for the development of online literature, and it is also the best time. As long as you can find the right market, you can easily get a share of the pie. The situation is much better than what happened later. Before the rebirth, due to the impact of 3 years of natural disasters, the number of online writers was said to be the same as the number of readers. What I said is true. As long as you want to, it shouldn't be difficult for you. Gao Xian still didn't believe it, really, Mr. Li, are you kidding me? Li Yuan nodded and said with a smile, if it is fake, you may encounter some setbacks in the early stage, but once you deeply understand the structure of the web article, you will know that it is not difficult. Gao Xian's eyes lit up and he suggested with a smile, talented Li, I think it would be better for you to set up an online literature club to specialize in writing online novels. I think it will definitely attract a large number of people. Su Ziqiang was the first to raise his hand, Brother Yuan really wants to establish an online literature club, I will be the first to sign up. Li Lanrong also raised his hand and smiled, I am also participating. I prefer reading romance novels, especially sweet love novels. If you write this kind of novel, some people will read it, right? Li Yuan smiled, of course, the market for romance novels will continue to grow for a long time. As long as there are still people and love in this world, there will be a market. If you are really good at it, you can give it a try. The copyright fees for some love stories are quite high, such as ancient costume dramas, Tang Dynasty dramas, or urban tyrant dramas like The Prince Turning into a Frog, etc. Right, it's good, financial freedom is not a big problem. Li Lanrong replied excitedly, I'm moved by what you said, Li Yuan. Hurry up and establish an online literature club. I will definitely sign up. Let alone wealth and freedom, if you can make 10,000 or 8,000 a month, you will be satisfied. Xiao Haijin listened to the conversation of several people, glanced at Li Yuan secretly, and said with a smile, I want to participate too. When Li Yuan heard that Xiao Haijin had come to join in the fun, he couldn't help but laugh and touched her head and said with a smile, Haijin, why are you joining in the fun? You'd better learn how to be a boss lady. Our company's money still needs you to take care of it. Listening to Li Yuan's words, Xiao Haijin's face suddenly turned red, and she shyly said This week, she was actually very busy. She had to take time to go to the company almost every day to conduct financial approval and disbursement. Li Yuan listened to the suggestions of several people, and suddenly his mind moved, and a bold idea emerged in his mind. In fact, in addition to short videos, live broadcasts, games, takeaways, Didi taxis, online shopping and other commercial outlets that will inevitably be popular in the future. The field of online literature is actually a good way to make money. Like in the previous life, the market value of Yuandian Chinese network has reached tens of billions, and the annual net profit easily exceeds 100 million. The key is that the investment is very small, and it can also combine film and television, animation, games, etc. to play the role of IP and make a lot of money. But is it necessary to reopen the portal? After the release of Honor of Kings, with sufficient cash, it is entirely possible to acquire the current original Chinese network and bring in platinum masters such as Dong Ji, Tudo, and Fanqi. Chapter 227 The School Beauty Who Committed Suicide, Asking for Monthly Tickets. This idea only flashed through Li Yuan's mind. He is now the super rookie king that Yuandian Chinese network has focused on cultivating. Various recommendations have reached the maximum state, and he has become popular in the true sense. Because of the title of genius musician and founder of Zhihu, those fanatical fans want to join the leader group to support him, and there are dozens of leaders who give rewards almost every day. Now the number of his leader group has exceeded 1,000, and it has changed from a book friend group to a fan group. Li Yuan can do nothing about this. It can only be said that the fanaticism of fans and readers is completely different. Just like the concert of Jay Zhou in Shanghai that he and Zhong Tingyu attended on the weekend, the ticket revenue of a concert alone was tens of millions, and it was hard to get a ticket. Li Yuan suddenly thought, if superstars like Jay Zhou and Su Song went to the website to write a novel, how popular would it be? That kind of scene is simply unimaginable. As long as the quality is a little bit good, it should be easy to break the highest subscription record in the online literature circle. Although he is far from the level of Jay Zhou and Su Song in the field of music, in just a month or so, he has successively released songs such as Nu Yan, Confession Balloon, Just Met You, and He Bridge, and Just Once. In the eyes of fans, he is a musical genius comparable to Jay Zhou, Su Song, and others, and naturally attracts many fanatical fans. Li Yuan thought of the subscription data and reward situation he saw in the past few days, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. With the support of many fans and his daily update of 10,000 words, the royalties for October are likely to reach an astronomical figure, and it is very likely to exceed 8 figures. The group came to the small cafeteria. Li Yuan ordered 7 or 8 dishes, and they were still talking about establishing an online literature club. The more Gao Xian thought about it, the more excited he became. He stared at Li Yuan eagerly and said with a smile, "Li, the great talent, if you don't want to take the lead, I can run errands and apply to the school youth league committee. I just want to borrow your name. Do you think it's okay?" Seeing that several classmates were so excited, Li Yuan didn't want to spoil the fun. Anyway, it's very easy to establish a club in school. You may not even need to apply for a venue. You can do it in the dormitory. However, if he applies to establish a club in his name, the school may give a little help. Even if the establishment of an online literature club requires activity funds, it is not a big problem for him who is worth over 100 million. It's not even a drop in the bucket. After just a little thought, Li Yuan smiled and nodded in agreement. "Okay, you guys decide. I'll give you spiritual and material support." Seeing Li Yuan agree, Gao Xian, Li Lanrong, and Ji Chen all jumped up excitedly, looking like they were about to become members of the China Writers Association and achieve financial freedom in the future. Gao Xian looked relieved and replied with a smile. "He, Mr. Li, we are relieved by your words. We will do our best to make our online literature club a 5-star club that is better than the literature club." Yes, with the support of Boss Li, I can't imagine what heights our online literature club will reach. Li Lanrong also looked yearning. "You said that if we all become online writers, it would be very nice if we could join the Writers Association in the future, even if it is not the China Writers Association, but the Magic City Writers Association. Haha, I am more looking forward to the royalties. If, as Li Yuan said, I can earn a few thousand yuan a month, I won't have to worry about my university tuition and living expenses. Last night, Xi Jin and I mentioned working part-time at Boss Li's company. If I write now, it can be regarded as another form of part-time work, right? He, Lucia, Wu Hao, Suzuki Yang, the three of you went to work part-time at Boss Li's company, and the girls like us went to work at Li Yuan's literature club. As they talked, they began to talk about the name, structure, entry conditions, venue, etc. of the online literature club they were going to establish. Gao Xian looked at Li Yuan, blinking her beautiful eyes. Mr. Li, you took the lead in establishing the online literature club, and you are our core. Can you give our club a name? Give me a name. Li Yuan was slightly startled, and said with a smile, names don't matter, just give me one. Gao Xian immediately retorted, that won't do, this name must be given by you, the great talent Li, only then it will be meaningful. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 387. Yes, Li Yuan, please think of a name. Li Lanrong and Ji Chen also quickly agreed. Li Yuan nodded helplessly, okay then. After thinking about it for a while, a name appeared in Li Yuan's mind. He looked at a few people and slowly uttered two words. Spark. The name of the online literature club should be called Xingguo. What do you think? Xingguo, Gao Xian chewed on these two words, his eyes were shining, he clapped his hands and praised. A single spark can start a prairie fire. I understand what you mean. Our current Spark Literary Society may be insignificant, but one day, with the joint efforts of everyone, just like a spark that starts a prairie fire, it will eventually grow and expand and amaze the whole world. Great talent Li, am I right? Li Yuan smiled. He simply thought the name sounded good, and it was a book written by a beautiful writer he knew in his previous life, so he chose this name. However, there is no need to talk to Gao Xian about these things. Almost Li Yuan nodded. While eating, several people chatted about the entry requirements of the Xingguo Literary Club, how to recruit members, and how to learn and write. Li Dakeze, should we focus on those students majoring in the Chinese department, Chinese language and literature, etc., will their writing skills be better? Gao Xian asked seriously. Li Yuan shook his head and explained, for online novels, the most important thing is whether the storyline is exciting. As for the writing style, although it is important, it is not that important. You have to wait until you get started and want to go further. Something to consider. As for whether to recruit members, I think it is possible to recruit, and it should not be limited to the Chinese department. Whether you can write good novels and your major cannot be said to have nothing to do with it. It can only be slightly related. Li Yuan seriously shared some of the knowledge about online novels he had learned in his previous life with a few people. Now, internet literature is just beginning to emerge and is in the early stages of vigorous development. Not many people really know about the writing of internet literature, and it is not like later when there were people selling courses everywhere. Listening to Li Yuan's lecture, Gao Xian showed an expression of enlightenment. I see. Let me tell you, I have read some popular romance novels recently. The writing style is really average. I feel that with the writing skills of some of us here, we can easily surpass them. But, what they wrote, the story is very attractive and makes people want to read it, like an addiction. Casually, I'm learning to write an opening recently. I'll finish it in a few days. Can you help me take a look? Li Yuan smiled and nodded, no problem. Gao Xian smiled and said, okay, after school is over in the afternoon, I will find out what conditions are needed to establish a club. During a lunch, the preliminary organization of the Spark Literary Society was established. Li Yuan is the first president of the Xingguo Literary Society Gao Xin, Li Lanrong, Ji Chen Chen, including Xiaz Haijin, have also joined this online literary society. Several top female freshman students are gearing up to make a name for themselves in the field of online writing. Li Yuan still trusts the level of these people. They are all 985 college students. At least their writing skills are not bad. The rest is writing skills and various creativity, which can be learned. As long as they study hard, are willing to accept it, and can understand the popular nature of online novels, and don't think too highly of themselves like those people in the literary club, it's not too difficult to write good results, and maybe they can teach a few. Where is the founder of the section? Li Yuan knew in his heart that after Honor of Kings is launched, he can invest in some industries that are bound to be popular in the future and achieve true financial freedom, and he may not write novels anymore. But we can teach some apprentices so that they can continue to shine in the field of online literature. After lunch. After Gao Xian, Lucia, and others left, Li Yuan saw that Xiaz Haijin was hesitant to speak, touched her head and said with a smile. Haijin, what's wrong? I feel like you have something on your mind. Don't hold anything in your heart, just tell me. Xiaz Haijin glanced at Li Yuan and said in a voice as loud as an ant, Li Yuan, my cousin said she wanted to come to me and meet you by the way. Are you free? Your cousin? Li Yuan was stunned and suddenly thought that Xiaz Haijin did have a cousin studying in Shanghai. It was because of this cousin that Xiaz Haijin came to the university in Shanghai instead of staying in the mountain city. She had mentioned it to herself before, but it had been delayed because of relationship and work matters. Seeing Xiaz Haijin's nervous look, Li Yuan couldn't help but smile, pinched her smooth and white face, and joked. What did I think it was? When will my cousin come? Should I prepare in advance? Seeing that Li Yuan did not refuse, Xiaz Haijin breathed a sigh of relief. She stared at Li Yuan with her beautiful eyes and said softly, it will be around 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon. Are you free? Li Yuan was wondering, today is Monday, why didn't this cousin choose to come on the weekend? However, he didn't care, they were all in the Magic City, and the distance wasn't too far. Of course I'm free. Then I won't go to the company in the afternoon and wait at school? Or should we drive to your cousin's school? Xiaz Haijin hesitated, How about I ask my cousin? Li Yuan smiled and said, well, it may not be convenient for my cousin to come alone. It will be more convenient for us to drive to her school. You can ask her. I can do anything. Xiaz Haijin smiled sweetly, well, I'll call her now. Li Yuan watched Xiaz Haijin talking to her cousin on the phone. It took less than 2 minutes before she hung up. What did my cousin say? My cousin said that if it is convenient for us, we can also go to their school to have a look. Oh, that's fine. We only have one class in the afternoon. After school, we will drive there together. After Li Yuan finished speaking, he asked. Haijin, by the way, which university is my cousin in? Xiaz Haijin smiled and said, she is in Shanghai Polytechnic University. I told you about it before. Oh, yes, I remember now. Li Yuan smiled awkwardly. Xiaz Haijin's cousin seems to be called Chu Yanyan. She is in the same university as me in my previous life and is my senior sister. Speaking of which, I studied at Shanghai Polytechnic University for 4 years in my previous life. I have been in Shanghai for more than 2 months in this life, but I have not been to Shanghai Polytechnic University yet. Also, the 5 roommates in my previous life, those college classmates, and the girls who once pursued me. Li Yuan suddenly felt a sense of homesickness. College life is often the most unforgettable era in a person's life. In college, there is the most abundant time, the most free environment, the most youthful and romantic atmosphere, and there is no huge pressure to start a family after work. In Li Yuan's mind, scenes emerged involuntarily, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. It was Xia's Haijin's words that brought him back to reality. Li Yuan, what are you laughing at? Li Yuan woke up, rubbed Xia's Haijin's head, and smiled. I thought of some past events. We have arrived at the dormitory. You can go back and rest for a while at noon. After class, we will go to Shanghai Polytechnic University together. Yeah. At 3:40 in the afternoon, the bell rang on time. Under the gaze of the whole class, Li Yuan held Xia's Haijin's hand and drove directly to Shanghai Polytechnic University. Haijin, this is the first time you meet your cousin, let's buy her some gifts. Do you know what she likes? Ah. Do you need to bring gifts? Xia's Haijin asked in a daze. Li Yuan smiled, you said your cousin treats you very well, let's give her some gifts, just to show our appreciation. Good boy, listen to me. Xia's Haijin glanced at Li Yuan, with a happy smile on her face, and whispered. Then what gift should I give my cousin? I don't quite understand. Li Yuan smiled. He has some experience in giving gifts to girls. He has given gifts too many times in his 2 lifetimes. However, those were all given as a boyfriend. It was really the first time to give gifts in this capacity. This was the first time I met my cousin, so the value of the gift could not be low, but it didn't need to be too high. The first thing Li Yuan thought of was electronic products, such as mobile phones, laptops, digital cameras, MP4s, etc. The second was cosmetics and bags. Clothes and shoes were not very suitable. If you know what her hobbies are, you can also give her some special gifts, such as badminton rackets, table tennis rackets, guitars, etc. Haijin, does your cousin have a laptop? Li Yuan asked. Xia's Haijin shook her head and whispered, I don't think so. I have video chatted with her several times, and she always used her roommate's laptop. Li Yuan felt relieved and smiled, that's perfect. Then give my cousin a laptop. She can use it. It's only 2008 now. Students with good family conditions can naturally afford laptops, but there are still many students in this world who are very poor and can't even afford mobile phones, like Xia's Haijin in the past. Hearing that Li Yuan was going to give his cousin a laptop, Xia's Haijin looked a little hesitant and asked hesitantly. Is this too expensive? Li Yuan smiled, touched Xia's Haijin's thigh, and said with a smile. She is your cousin, which means she is my cousin. Didn't you say before that your cousin is very good to you? We should be generous. A laptop is only a few thousand yuan and can be used in the future. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 388. Xia's Haijin smiled sweetly. Li Yuan attached great importance to her relatives, which made her feel full of happiness. Li Yuan, thank you. Li Yuan chuckled, you silly girl, you are still talking about this between the two of us. Then let's go to the mall first and choose a computer for my cousin. The two drove to Lanjiao Mall, the same merchant as last time, and bought the same laptop as Xia's Haijin. At the entrance of Shanghai University of Technology, Chu Yanyan looked around anxiously, expecting that familiar figure to appear. She has just entered her 3rd year of college. She has been taking a lot of professional courses recently and is busy with part-time jobs. She has no time to find her cousin. When I was preparing to go during the National Day holiday, I heard from my cousin that she had already returned to the mountain city, and she had brought her boyfriend back with her. She had already met her grandma and dad. Thinking about the phone call, my father, who was far away in the mountain city, praised my cousin's boyfriend as the best in the world, and bought my cousin a mansion worth 1 or 2 million in the mountain city. It made her have deep expectations for this cousin-in-law whom she had never met before. Cousin, I'm here. Suddenly, a familiar voice pulled Chu Yanyan out of her reverie. Chu Yanyan knew whose voice it was as soon as she heard it, and quickly looked in the direction of the voice. Just saw. Not far away, a slim figure was greeting her excitedly. Behind her, there was a very streamlined BMW SUV. Zhijin. Chu Yanyan looked happy and hurriedly walked over to greet him. Xia Zhijin greeted excitedly, her face full of joy of reuniting her relatives, Sister Yanyan. When Chu Yanyan saw Xia Zhijin's appearance, even though she had seen it often before, she was suddenly shocked. Xia Zhijin was very beautiful before, but due to family reasons, she had a low self-esteem and often lowered her head. She was far from as bright and confident as she is now. Chu Yanyan held the hand of this poor cousin lovingly, smiled and joked. Zhijin, we sisters have not seen each other for almost 3 months. You are more beautiful than before. It seems that your boyfriend is really good to you. Listening to her cousin's joke, Xia Zhijin's beautiful face was stained with a blush. Looking at her cousin who was only slightly shorter than herself, equally beautiful but more mature, she shyly praised. Sister Yanyan, you are also very beautiful. Chu Yanyan pursed her lips and snickered, haha, silly girl, we sisters, please stop praising each other. By the way, where is your boyfriend? Didn't he say he would come with you? Xia Zhijin glanced at Li Yuan who was parking the car shyly. He's parking the car. Following Xia Zhijin's gaze, Chu Yanyan saw this brand new BMW, her eyes moved slightly, but she was not too surprised. I can buy a mansion of more than 200 square meters for my girlfriend who I have just met for more than a month. She must be rich or expensive. It seems a bit low-key to drive a BMW. At this time, Li Yuan also parked the car, carrying his packed laptop, and saw Xia Zhijin chatting with a tall girl, and thought to himself that this girl was probably her cousin. Li Yuan came over and looked at Xia Zhijin. Zhijin. Then, he looked at Xia Zhijin's cousin. When he saw Xia Zhijin's cousin, Li Yuan looked stunned and slightly absent-minded. He felt very, very familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere. In my mind, memories about my previous life kept popping up in my mind, like pages of a picture scroll, being quickly pushed aside. Suddenly, he thought of something. In his previous life, at the end of his freshman year, he seemed to have heard the news that a beautiful senior in her junior year had committed suicide by jumping off a building because of emotional problems. At that time, this matter was aroused, and all kinds of news were leaked. Some people say that she committed suicide in anger because of emotional problems with her boyfriend, who cheated on her. Some people also said that this beautiful senior with school beauty was raped by several boys, and then, unwilling to be humiliated, she jumped off the building and committed suicide. There are different opinions, but the photos of this beautiful senior student were exposed by someone who was interested. It caused a certain disturbance in the school at that time, but was suppressed by the school, so it did not spread. At that time, I was lamenting to my roommates how miserable beauties have been since ancient times. Li Yuan never expected that that pretty and unfortunate senior could be Xia Zhijin's cousin. When Chu Yanyan saw her cousin's boyfriend, she stared at her intently as soon as she saw her. She felt a little embarrassed. Although I am very beautiful, I can't stare at myself like this when I am around my cousin, right? Her cheeks were slightly red and she quickly said cough and said hello. Hello, I am Chu Yanyan, Zhijin's cousin. Hearing Chu Yanyan's voice, Li Yuan came back to his senses. He looked deeply at the cousin with complex eyes, calmed down the shock he had just received, and said hello with a smile. Hello, Sister Yanyan, my name is Li Yuan, and I am Zhijin's boyfriend. Chu Yanyan smiled and said, I often hear Zhijin talking about you. You are indeed tall and handsome. Not bad, not bad. Li Yuan glanced at Xia Zhijin, touched the silly treasure girl with his arm, and shook the laptop in his hand as a reminder. After being reminded by Li Yuan, Xia Zhijin finally realized what she was doing. She quickly reached out to take the gift from Li Yuan and said shyly. Sister Yanyan, this is the gift Li Yuan bought for you. Chu Yanyan looked at the wrapped gift box with some surprise in her heart. She didn't expect that her cousin-in-law would be so sensible and even bought herself a gift when she met her for the first time. As a sister, I haven't given you 2 gifts yet, but you gave me a gift. Chu Yanyan first thanked her and then declined. I accept your thoughts and take the gift back. Li Yuan smiled and said, Sister Yanyan, this is mainly a little thought from Zhaijin and I thank you for taking care of Zhaijin all the time. I have heard her talk about the past. I am really grateful to you, Sister Yanyan, otherwise I would have missed Zhaijin. Chapter 228 Sincerity is a must-kill skill, but going it alone will lead to a dead end. Li Yuan insisted on giving it, and Xia Zhaijin also persuaded her. Chu Yanyan, who didn't know the value of the gift, couldn't refuse it, so she accepted it. He, thank you both for the gift, so I accepted it shamelessly. Is this your first time at Magic University of Technology? Shall I take you around the school? Chu Yanyan held Xia Zhaijin's hand and looked at Li Yuan, looking very enthusiastic. It could be seen that the two sisters had a good relationship. Li Yuan naturally had no objections. After being reborn and revisiting his old place for the first time, Li Yuan looked at the university where he had stayed for 4 years in his previous life. Many emotions came to his mind. Same age, different schools, completely different experiences. In my previous life, I was just an ordinary person with good looks and figure. I didn't have 3,000 yuan in my body. In this prosperous metropolis, I was only at the bottom. And in this life, at the same age, I am already worth over 100 million, and have initially achieved financial freedom. Li Yuan listened to Chu Yanyan's introduction with a smile on his face, and he still had doubts in his heart from time to time. Is the school beauty who was determined to have committed suicide in his previous life the same as the one in front of him? In his previous life, he just looked at the photos on the internet and found that he was 70% or 80% similar to the cousin in front of him. Zhaijin, Li Yuan, Moda University of Technology was founded in 1906, which is about the same time as Ardaxia University. They both have a long history. However, you are a normal university and we are a science and engineering university. Have you noticed any differences in the schools? When Xia Zhaijin was with Chu Yanyan, her personality became much more cheerful and she obviously talked more. Sister Yanyan, I feel that there are so few girls in your school. Most of the people you meet along the way are boys. Chu Yanyan pursed her lips and chuckled, it's a science and engineering university. There are more men than women, and the ratio is very different. The male-to-female ratio in our school is about 5:1. Many boys can't find girlfriends. Xia Zhaijin's eyes widened with a look of shock. A male-to-female ratio of 5:1? Isn't this too exaggerated? I heard that the male-to-female ratio in our school is 1:3. Zhaijin, yours is a normal university, and ours is a polytechnic university, so it must be different. Among all kinds of universities, normal universities, art universities, and medical universities all have more women than men. Schools like ours at the University of Architecture and Technology next door, it is said that the male-to-female ratio is 10:1. In science and engineering universities, it's very difficult for boys to find girlfriends. Xia Zhaijin glanced at Li Yuan and asked curiously, Sister Yanyan, have you found a boyfriend? Listening to Xia Zhaijin's inquiry, Li Yuan's heart moved and he couldn't help but listen. From Chu Yanyan's answer, we may be able to judge what the incident in the previous life was like. Chu Yanyan answered openly, I don't have a boyfriend yet, but I have a lot of suitors. Xia Zhaijin said oh and joked with a light smile, Sister Yanyan, have you not found the right one? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Rusiahua. Chapter 389. Chu Yanyan smiled and said, well, I feel that they are all too naive, not mature at all, and insecure. Zhaijin, you are much more cheerful now than before. As expected, the power of love is really great. Xia Zhaijin smiled and secretly glanced at Li Yuan. Because of the man beside her, she changed from an inferior and timid girl to what she is now. He, Zhaijin, how did Li Yuan pursue you at that time? Tell me about it. When Li Yuan heard it, he was talking about himself again. He coughed and felt a little embarrassed. The process of his pursuit of Xia Zhaijin can be said to be full of old man's routines. This simple and shy treasure girl was taken down by him in a daze, without even the opportunity to pull, raise fish, wait and see, and compare. Li Yuan was a little surprised. Doesn't this beautiful cousin know that he is cheating on several people? This is also possible. On the way here, he heard Xia Zhaijin say that Chu Yanyan has been working part-time since her freshman year, doing various part-time jobs, and without a laptop, she may not have time to surf the internet to chase stars. Although his current reputation is not small, perhaps only the words "born like a summer flower" cannot match him. Unless those fanatical fans or senior book friends know him. Li Yuan was a little uneasy. At present, only Zhong Tingyu, Xia Zhaijin, Bai Wuxi, Zhang Ziyu and other girls, as well as some classmates, netizens and fans knew that he was dating several women. And the parents of Xia Zhaijin and Bai Wuxi didn't seem to know about this, at least Bai Wuxi's parents didn't know. Otherwise, Li Yuan doubted whether Bai Wuxi's father, who was a bit of a daughter slave, would pick up a knife to chop him after knowing the truth. Xia Zhaijin glanced at Li Yuan gently, bit her lip, and smiled slightly, which was very charming. We are classmates. On the first day of school, when the classmates introduced themselves, he suddenly walked towards me and said that I helped him and wanted to invite me to dinner. He was very good to me, sharing childhood stories with me, cooking with me, taking me to work, shopping, and watching the sunset together. He is also very talented, just like the sun in the sky, so dazzling. Li Yuan was also listening carefully to Xia Zhaijin's story about their relationship, and his cheeks blushed slightly, feeling a little guilty. Such a treasure girl, she is full of herself in her eyes, but she is not just her. Chu Yanyan listened to Xia Zhaijin's story, and her beautiful eyes showed a strange feeling. She glanced at Li Yuan, who was smiling and carrying a bag beside him. He stood out from the crowd, had a figure full of lines, a handsome and cool face, and was generous. She could give Li Yuan a score of 90 in her heart. I couldn't help but sigh at my cousin's good vision. Some of the high-quality men I met in the Polytechnic University, where there are more boys, are also far behind Li Yuan. Tisk, Zhaijin, Li Yuan, you two are so romantic. As she spoke, Chu Yanyan looked at Li Yuan and teased. But, Li Yuan, you are just a freshman, where did you learn so many tricks to trap Zhaijin? Li Yuan smiled awkwardly, what kind of routine is this? It's child's play. Sister Yanyan, this is not a routine, it's because of my sincerity that I can prize Zhaijin's heart. Li Yuan said seriously, sincerity is the ultimate move in love. Of course, he didn't say the second half of the sentence. This ultimate move is a king bomb when combined with others, but it is a dead end when it is used alone. Coincidentally, his sincerity can be combined with others. Sincerity is the ultimate skill in love, Chu Yanyan murmured to herself, her eyes lit up, and she couldn't help but look at Li Yuan deeply, her heart pounding. Li Yuan, you are young, but you have deep insights. Chu Yanyan sighed, took Xia Zhaijin's hand, and pointed to a building next to her. In our school, there are many views worth seeing. This one is the antique library of our school. It is said to have a history of several decades. There is also the clock tower. This is the playground. The environment is not bad. How does it compare with your school? This is the gymnasium. There are basketball courts, badminton courts, and table tennis tables. There are many people every day. There is no queue at all. I haven't been there much. A man and two women, along the green road, shuttled through the Magic City University of Technology, feeling the charming scenery of this school. Li Yuan was too familiar with this, and there was not much novelty. There were only memories imprinted in his mind. Suddenly, a mobile phone rang. Li Yuan and Xiao Haijin both looked at Chu Yanyan. Xiao Haijin smiled and reminded, "Sister Yanyan, your phone is ringing." "Oh, let me see who's calling." Chu Yanyan took out a very ordinary Nokia phone from her bag. Her smiling expression suddenly changed after she saw the caller. She didn't answer the call and hung up directly. Chu Yanyan smiled casually, "It's okay, it's an unfamiliar number, it might be a sales pitch." Li Yuan's observation ability has been greatly improved after his rebirth. He has been secretly observing Chu Yanyan and noticed the change in her expression when she saw the phone number just now. She obviously knew the number of the caller, but now she said it was a strange number that she didn't recognize. There must be something weird about this. Although he had guessed in his mind, Li Yuan did not take the liberty to ask. This was inappropriate. However, just after Chu Yanyan hung up the phone, Li Yuan heard Chu Yanyan's cell phone ringing again. Chu Yanyan took out her mobile phone with a slightly embarrassed expression. After seeing that it was still the same number, her face became even more embarrassed. Although it only took a moment, she immediately returned to her normal sweet smile, but it was still caught by Li Yuan. Li Yuan remained calm, his mind was filled with the blood-stained scene from his previous life. If he doesn't know him, that's fine. It's better to do less than to do more. But now it seems that the school beauty who committed suicide is most likely Xiao Haijin's cousin. This cousin had such a good relationship with Xiao Haijin, and it was because of her that he met this treasured girl. Due to emotions and reasons, it is impossible for him to ignore death. He simply couldn't imagine how Xiao Haijin, a poor girl from a previous life, would feel when she learned that her cousin, who was closest to her, also committed suicide by jumping off a building. If it were me, I might really collapse. Just like when my eldest cousin committed suicide due to love, I was also sad for a long time, and my uncle's family shed tears every day. Not long after Chu Yanyan hung up, the phone rang again, and then she hung up again. At this time, the attentive Xiao Haijin also noticed something was wrong and asked doubtfully, "Sister Yanyan, why didn't you answer whose call? Could it be that they have something important to do with you?" Chu Yanyan pretended to be calm and shook her head, "It's okay, it's just a strange phone call. Leave him alone. Let's continue shopping. It's not easy for you and Li Yuan." Although Xiao Haijin felt something was wrong, she couldn't describe that feeling. At this time, Li Yuan suddenly smiled and joked, "Haijin, maybe it's a call from one of Sister Yanyan's suitors. Sister Yanyan is embarrassed to answer it in front of us." Xiao Haijin's eyes lit up, her bright big eyes blinked, and she pursed her lips and snickered. The situation Li Yuan mentioned is very possible. "Sister Yanyan, are you really your suitor?" Chu Yanyan's heart skipped a beat. Of course she knew exactly who the caller was. But precisely because of this, I felt very helpless. She and Xiao Haijin are cousins. Although her appearance is not as good as Xiao Haijin's, she can still score above 90 points. In a school like Shanghai University of Technology, which has more wolves and less meat, she is naturally particularly popular. She was welcomed and praised as the school belle, and had many suitors, but there was no one who stood out among the suitors. The one who kept calling just now was one of them, a very special one among them, one she didn't dare to offend. No, just a stranger. Chu Yanyan obviously didn't want to say more. She looked at Li Yuan and the two of them and said with a smile. What do you two want to eat tonight? I'll treat you to dinner. Xia's Haijin smiled and said, Sister Yanyan, let's go to the cafeteria and try the taste of your school cafeteria. Go to the cafeteria to eat. Chu Yanyan was stunned, feeling that something was not appropriate. The food in our school cafeteria is average. Why don't you go out to eat? I'll treat you two to a big dinner. Li Yuan continued, Sister Yanyan, Haijin, and I often eat out. We really don't have anything we particularly like to eat. We can just stir-fry 2 dishes in the cafeteria to try the taste of Polytechnic University. After dinner, we can continue to eat and you can go to school without having to run back and forth. Okay then, our cafeteria has a few special dishes, and I think they taste quite good. Seeing that Li Yuan also insisted on eating in the canteen, Chu Yanyan simply stopped insisting. With Li Yuan's wealth, the food outside may not be attractive to him. The three of them walked around for a while, and as it was time to eat, there were obviously more male college students going out to hunt. Xia's Haijin and Chu Yanyan walked together, which immediately attracted many exclamations and comments. As the thorn in the side of the beautiful woman, Li Yuan felt that he was almost killed by the gaze. This is completely different from being at Daxia University. At Daxia University, although his 3 girlfriends are all stunning beauties at the school belle level, he himself is even more famous because of several reasons, and there are many, many people who know him. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 390. While enjoying the glances of many male majors, Li Yuan joked. Sister Yanyan, Haijin, walking together with you two beauties, I really feel a little embarrassed. I feel like your return rate has reached 1000%. Chu Yanyan chuckled, hee. Why, Li Yuan, do you feel pressure? The return rate is 1000%, how did you calculate that? Li Yuan shrugged and joked, the return rate is 1000%. Of course, it's because some people looked back and found it not satisfying, so they watched it again and again. This adds up to 1000%. Well, I'm sure every boy passing by now wants to change places with me. Li Yuan, I didn't expect you to be quite eloquent. Chu Yanyan laughed, pulled Xiaji's little hand, and joked. No wonder you managed to catch our Haijin in just 1 month. Li Yuan thought to himself, 1 month? Who do you look down on? At most half a month, I held hands the same day we met. In my previous life, it was not uncommon for me to meet someone who played poker together the same night they met. All I can say is that as bold as a person is, love will come quickly. If you still don't dare to move your hands like you did in your previous life, sooner or later you will be regarded as a licking dog, or a fish in a fish pond. Li Yuan felt clear in his heart. The 3 of them came to Mari's small canteen amidst the greeting in front of everyone. Almost all universities are the same. In addition to the large cafeteria that can accommodate tens of thousands of people, there are also several small cafeterias where you can order food individually. Chu Yanyan handed the menu to Li Yuan. Li Yuan, Haijin, look at the menu and see what you want to eat. Li Yuan now has no special pursuit of ordinary food, and he doesn't have anything he likes to eat. Unless it is some special food that I have never eaten in my previous life. Li Yuan smiled, Sister Yanyan, please keep an eye on it, I'm not picky about food. Xia's Haijin was unwilling to order, so Chu Yanyan had no choice but to order a few special Sichuan dishes. While waiting for the food, the few of them chatted about daily life and interesting things about Xia's Haijin's family. Li Yuan, I heard from my dad that you are very good at drinking. You drank my uncle and the others unconscious. Li Yuan smiled awkwardly, remembering the first time he went to Xia's Haijin's house, and the scene where Xia's Haijin's uncles poured wine on him. The drink that day was Maotai. Xia's Haijin's uncles all drank a lot and had a great time. Naturally, he also drank out his prestige. Although this kind of prestige is not something he wants to wear on his head. Haha, Sister Yanyan, it's nothing. It's just that uncle and the others were happy, so they drank more. Chu Yanyan curled her lips and said with a smile, "Come on, don't pretend in front of me. I know my uncle's drinking capacity better than you. My dad said that he originally wanted to test your drinking capacity, but after knowing that you drank my uncle and the others down, he didn't mention it." Li Yuan smiled, as if that was the case. "That night, I just tasted it briefly, then went home and ate Xia's Haijin. Haijin, Li Yuan has already met his parents. You two are making really fast progress. Your sister and I are already in our junior year, and we haven't been in love yet. Speaking of which, I thought that with your personality, you would be like me in college and wouldn't know how to fall in love." As Chu Yanyan talked, she thought of Xia's Haijin's appearance and character before, and felt that things in the world were unpredictable and unpredictable. "I didn't expect you to find your boyfriend so quickly and take him home so quickly. Haijin, do you know, when I heard the news from my dad, I thought he was just teasing me. I don't believe it at all." Listening to her cousin's joke, Xia's Haijin's cheeks turned slightly red. The authorities are confused, but the bystanders are clear. Looking back now, she feels that what happened in the nearly 2 months from the beginning of college to the present is unbelievable, like a dream, and somewhat unreal. Before going to college, all she thought about was studying hard, finding a good job, and when she was able, she would take her grandma and Anning out of the mountains. She never expected to fall in love so quickly or meet her parents so soon. Many times, she was afraid of waking up and finding out that everything was false. Chu Yanyan continued to joke, "A few days ago, my dad called me and urged me to find a partner quickly. What else can I say? He doesn't have high requirements for his future son-in-law, just someone similar to Li Yuan." "Do you know what I said?" "Sister Yanyan, how did you answer uncle?" Xia's Haijin asked curiously. Chu Yanyan smiled and said, "He, I say, it's simple. Just treats Haijin as your daughter. She is your niece anyway." Li Yuan smiled, he thought it would be another answer. The three of them were talking. Suddenly, Li Yuan saw a tall boy, holding a bouquet of flowers, coming to the door of the cafeteria and looking around inside. When she saw Chu Yanyan, she immediately showed surprise and walked over with flowers in her hands. "Yanyan, you are here, why don't you answer my call?" When Chu Yanyan saw Yansheng following him, her expression suddenly changed, and her voice was mixed with a bit of helplessness and anger. Before Chu Yanyan could speak, Yansheng looked at Xia's Haijin next to Chu Yanyan again, his eyes suddenly lit up, a greedy look flashed in his eyes, and he licked his lips subconsciously. "Yanyan, why didn't you call me when you were eating in the cafeteria? Who is this beautiful woman next to you? Won't you introduce her to me?" Chu Yanyan took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in her heart, stared at Yansheng, and her voice was very cold. "Yansheng, who she is has nothing to do with you, right?" Yansheng didn't care about Chu Yanyan's attitude, and replied with a smile, "How can it have nothing to do with me? I am your boyfriend. Yes, I bought you roses." After that, he threw the bouquet of roses into Chu Yanyan's arms. Chu Yanyan quickly pushed him away, her voice helpless, "I don't want it." Yansheng continued to smile, "Yanyan, you know how I feel about you, why do you keep your distance from me?" Chu Yanyan frowned helplessly, "I've already said that I don't want to fall in love during college, why do you force me to agree?" Xia's Haijin, who was standing by, saw this scene, and a trace of doubt appeared in her bright eyes. She was a little confused about the current situation. She looked at Li Yuan, and her soft little hand grabbed his hand for help. Li Yuan gave a reassured look in return. "Thanks to Yun for the 500-point reward." Chapter 229 There is nothing in this world that money can't do. Chu Yanyan was entangled and helpless. She had clearly rejected Yin Sheng many times, but the other party always found various reasons to approach her and always regarded himself as her boyfriend. If that was all, it would be fine, and she could just block and delete him. The key point is that Yin Sheng's father is a professor in the school, and this professor is also a professor in her department. She is afraid that if she offends him, she will not be able to graduate. Just when Chu Yanyan was thinking about avoiding Yin Sheng's entanglement as usual, suddenly, a faint sneer sounded in her ears. "This classmate, you are so shameless to pester other girls." Yin Sheng had noticed Li Yuan a long time ago. Or, he would care about every boy who appeared next to Chu Yanyan. Looking at Li Yuan, who was holding hands with Xia's Haijin and looked calm, Yin Sheng frowned slightly. "What does the relationship between Yanyan and me have to do with you? Who do you think you are?" Li Yuan laughed. "She is my cousin, who do you think I am?" Chu Yanyan is Xia's Haijin's cousin, which is equivalent to his own cousin, so he naturally has to stand up and protect her. Hearing that Li Yuan was Chu Yanyan's brother, Yin Sheng's expression eased a little, but his tone was still aggressive. "I am sincere to Yanyan. Ask your sister if there is any boy in the whole school who treats her better than me." Li Yuan was speechless and shook his head. "Classmate, if you want to pursue a girl, you should use your charm to attract her, instead of being so shameless. Feelings are two-way. If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Forced melons are not sweet. You have caused a lot of trouble to my cousin by being so entangled. Be sensible and don't make yourself unhappy. You will lose face when the time comes." Yin Sheng laughed and stared at Li Yuan with a frown. "Are you threatening me?"